Hello, America, and to our friends around the world. Welcome to the Common Sense Show. We are the show freeing America one enslaved mind and hopefully soul at a time. We defend God, family, country, and we have a special place in our heart for the oppressed. And that's going to be the topic of what we're going to talk about here. I have the benefit of having a really good history background. And it's amazing what Mark Twain said. He's so right. He said, history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. And we're going to talk about the rhyming. And we are going through the most unique time in American business history. And they're on a mission. And we're going to expose all that here, just common sense evaluation. And man, you just wish Jesus was here in the flesh today so he could walk through the temples, overturn the tables. Um, and Jesus was a man's man. You look at that, he took tremendous risk when he did that in mortal form. We need that kind of attitude today. And I'm not proposing violence, I'm proposing whole scale rejection of a corrupt system. And listen, the answer is not socialism, communism, the Democratic Socialist Party, in my humble opinion. They're a threat to the Constitution, to our way of life. They're a threat to your religious freedom to worship our Creator. So that's not the answer. We're looking for solutions. I have some ideas. I'm sure you have some ideas. Let's share them. Anyway, we are brought to you by the product that will keep you whole and healthy. And if you're not, it'll make you that way. As you know, as I was preparing to coach my last set of basketball games, I, right before the state tournament, I was stricken with pneumonia and RSV. Now, at the time, we didn't know how bad the RSV was. The pneumonia cleared it up. But man, I don't think I did a good job coaching my team in the state tournament. I was so sick. I should have been in bed. The bus had to actually drop me off by the arena because I was too weak to walk any distance. It was a struggle. And it got worse. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. And then came Scotty Sachs. Dave, what's wrong? I'm sick. I got RSV. And I've been told by the doctors I got strep lung linings and they ain't coming back. And he goes, that's not good. No, he said, Dave, the Nanosoma products, you need to try them. So I got on the spray. You can take it 5 times a day. That's the recommended dosage for maintenance to keep your immune system boosted. It doesn't cure anything. Boosts the immune system, lets it do the job. And I was taking it 5 times every hour because it's all natural and you can do that. Within a week, I was walking up the stairs. Within a month, I'm back in the gym. But then I had the old joint inflammation, arthritis problems, limiting my recovery. So, despite doctors' negative prognosis, I had to overcome the lung part. Now it's time to overcome the physical part. And I did so with the Nanosoma gel. I rubbed it on up 6 week mark. Gosh, I feel pretty good. I'm doing curls without the tendon issues. I'm starting to be able to do squats again. Now, I wasn't totally out of the woods, but 2 weeks later, I declared myself to be symptom free. Now, I can't tell you it's going to be 8 weeks for you. It might be 8 days. It might be 8 months. I don't know. But if you stay on the job and keep using these products, you're going to see amazing improvement. In fact, when I was here at the Watchman Conference, I had person after person come up to me. Dave, based on your recommendation, I took these products and there's like a miracle. Yeah. And I almost forgot the skin cream, cuts and burns. Together, that's the starter pack. 15% off, and they're flying off the shelves. So I want to strongly recommend to you right now, you get it while you can. And if we get into a supply chain problem with food and medicine, at least you can have the natural part of it taken care of. Go to I want my health back.com/Dave Hodges. I want my health back.com/Dave Hodges. Well, this is more of a philosophical slash historical presentation. Don't have any graphs, dramatic things to tell you, but I'm going to take you back in time. New York City went through something called the scandals of Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed. And then we had the robber barons, it just terrible corruption, terrible monopolies, ripping people off, overcharging, driving out competitors through very violent, illegal means and getting away with it. Then we got to a period where we had correction. The people rose up, they formed unions, and there was a lot of violence and some killing. But the people basically established a baseline on how an employee could be treated. Congress came up with antitrust legislation with the Sherman Antitrust Act and the Clayton Antitrust Act. And the lives of average Americans that were working, a lot of them immigrants, they started to improve. And we have seen a steady increase in worker productivity and standard of living in the American worker ever since, up until up until the Clinton years. Things started to turn. Not big, but started to. Then it got worse in the Obama years. Today, they're out of control bad. Really, Biden was horrible. We expected major reforms from Trump, and what we've got is moss, more of the same. It's not changing. It's actually, quite frankly, getting worse. And we have the return of the robber barons in mass. So, when your gas goes up a quarter, about 20 cents of that is tack on profits. Only 5 cents of it typically is the real increase in cost because of the Gulf War with the Strait of Hormuz. And we're seeing a repeat. 2/3 of the data centers today that gulp water incessantly, millions of gallons, they're being built on or in drought-ridden areas. Who would do this to themselves? Those people don't live in the drought-ridden areas. They're fine with it. The politicians have sold out their communities. Again, it's the return of the robber barons. We see it in the airlines. I used to do almost nothing except for international travel, but I travel just domestically. Southwest Airlines. Bags fly free. Open seating. You get to board the plane in the order of how early you register and get to the airport. Awesome. Flights were cheaper. They had better on time. It used to take an hour to clean, prep, and get a plane back into service after it landed. And Southwest got that down to 10 minutes. They bought the same plane so they could access maintenance exactly the same way. Their on time was almost always number one. Their service was cordial and friendly, unlike some of the horror stories we told you about during COVID with airlines like United. Horrendous. But now even Southwest went away. Bags don't fly free. They were taken over by an equity investor who wrecked the airlines, made it undesirable to fly. I think I have flown Southwest once since that hostile takeover. And by the way, they sold out and they got their profit and they moved on and they left Southwest in a really crappy condition. They're losing ridership. American Airlines is making some steps, but they still charge for every bag. And your legroom, by the way, back in the 70s when Southwest was booming and growing, was actually 5 inches more than you have now. Did you know that? 5 inches more. And flying is such a crappy experience. I don't know about you. I hate going to the airport. I don't have anything against the TSA people. They're doing a valuable job. I have nothing against them at all. And most of them are polite. Few of them are very rude, but most of them are very, very polite. But it's a miserable experience to go through those lines. And the rules are the different. You get a Smith machine, you don't have to take your computer out. You don't know if it's a Smith machine or not. I can't tell by looking. It's not my job to identify them. I come up, you have to have your computer out. I didn't know it was a Smith machine. It's a miserable experience. And most of your flight attendants are personal, but the ticket counter people, they could use a course in, yeah, politeness, patience, being willing to answer questions without an attitude. I hate flying, hate it. Now, it's just another industry that's been destroyed. We talked earlier, nurses. That whole profession is going to be under attack now, where the low bid nurse is going to get the shift. That means you're going to get the lower quality employee. That means nurses' standard of living is going to go down. It, the corporations are out of control. The media is controlled, 98% of it, by six major corporations, all tied to special interest groups with big business, Fortune 500. And you are suffering. And we eat crappy foods that make us fat. It's not our lifestyle. Don't believe that crap. Go look at pictures of people in the 60s. Everybody was skinny. But we're eating processed foods with garbage in it because it keeps the food on the shelf longer. To heck with the health. We don't care about the health effects. Doesn't make you obese. Doesn't matter. As long as we can keep that out there till it sells. You're being ripped off at every single angle. And really, when you look at the macro picture, let's take a 30,000-foot view. Corporations today in America have more power than the voting bloc, Congress, and even the president. Oh, the high-tech bros? Yeah, well, they want that war in the Middle East. They want Israel to go unfettered through Gaza, and they'll control the development, the digital development, digital cities, big bucks, military-industrial complex, licking their lips. They can't produce the weapons fast enough. In fact, we got a shortage. Money hand over fist. War has become a big moneymaker for the investors. And soon we go into ground war at the behest of Israel. We'll have thousands of American body bags coming home so they can enjoy their profits. I'm not buying we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Israel's been saying that every 2 weeks for 20 years. I'm not buying it. What I am buying is the corporations are taking over. And I go back to this movie again, 1975, Rollerball. Six corporations ruled the world. Now, we're not there now, of course. But are we moving in that direction? Yes. Extra governmental bodies with no legal authority are making huge decisions in the Middle East. They're called the Board of Peace. We've talked about that. And many top politicians around the world are on this, including our president, who is the head of it for life, Rubio, Jared Kushner, Witkoff. Yeah, exactly. And we live in an environment where the president's sons have gone from millionaires to hundreds of millionaires on the way to billionaire status. Congress can insider trade. You go to prison. It's just right now, people, we're really in trouble. And I am someone that knows there's a voter integrity problem in this country. I covered it in my own county. When 56% of your voting machines don't work in Republican dominant districts, 50% plus one, and no percent had that happen in Democratic dominant districts, 50% plus one. And you're going to tell me there's nothing wrong with that? That's just a coincidence. We estimate 150,000 people or more didn't vote that would have voted in Maricopa County in Republican districts. And Carrie Lake lost by 17,000 votes. I could go on and on with this. They're making it harder to vote. I want voter integrity fixed, but they're now trying to disenfranchise working class people. You must have a birth certificate or you must have Uh, what's the other thing they're letting you use? Oh yeah, passport. Costs $130 for a passport. In these times of unaffordability, do you think that's an issue for the lower class? I saw a poll where it said 58% of Americans in the middle class thought that was an undoable burden. They don't want to spend $130. Okay, well, you can bring your birth certificate. Do you know where your birth certificate's at? And nothing else will work. And you can have a photo ID on top of that. And listen, I don't want voter fraud. I agree with the president's restrictions on mail-in balloting because we've had too many problems, verifiable problems, like Thomas Massey and what the Zionist donors did with their $32 million. And then, by the way, that primary election doubled in its participation over 2 years ago, and Thomas Massey only got 8% of the double to a guy who never won an election. He was 0 for 3. Hmm. Would that raise your eyebrows? We are being ripped off politically with rules for thee, but not for me type of philosophy. Corporations have exemptions and special privilege. Our ruling class has special privilege that we don't. And I'm saying we're back to the Gilded Age. Tammany Hall, Boss Tweed. I'm not saying unions are the answer, but we need something to level the playing field. And it's not violence. And you're not going to win that today. Seriously. Joe Biden, in one of the more lucid things he ever said, you people think you're going to overthrow the government? Well, you got M16s, we got F-16s. Well, that's actually a very accurate statement by a man who wasn't really capable of much lucid thinking. And he was right about that. That's not the answer. Violence is not the answer. What is the answer? I asked this in the last piece. We talked about how nurses are getting shafted. What's the answer? We want a republic form of government, and I'll say it boldly, run by Christian people who've been elected by us in honest elections to follow the rules of our Constitution and not desert their faith. Can I get an amen on that? Write something in the comment section. Send me an email. Tell me amen to that. Now, here's the question. How do we go about obtaining this? Okay. I feel like the theme from Jeopardy, da 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 da, da should be playing right now. People, I don't think we have a lot of time because once the digital bros get us on digital currency, it's game over. Because see, then they'll have the control, they'll control the actual money. And if you're naughty, they don't like what you say, it'd be like China. Social credit. Oh, sorry. They'll control what you buy. Oh, you had a steak last month. Didn't you read the World Economic Forum report? We can't eat meat. You need to eat bugs. Oh, really? Well, do you know who went and talked to the World Economic Forum? Maybe we should take them more seriously. Donald Trump did. Who's the CEO of the World Economic Forum? Well, that would be Larry Fink. Who's he? The CEO of BlackRock, the largest private equity investor in the country. The direction we're headed is corporate rule, no constitution, no citizen participation, total obedience, and if you're lucky, a marginable standard of living. And this is where, do you want to argue with that? You want to talk about wage adjusted for inflation compared to how it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? We have never been more productive as a nation, business wise. But the standard of living is, so here's the deal. Wall Street measuring productivity, stock market, so to the moon. Standard of living for the middle class and below, dropping off the cliff. How does that happen? Well, it's called wealth redistribution. When they screwed up in 2008 and lost their rear ends on Wall Street, did they pay for it? The people that caused it? No. You were forced to bail them out with your tax dollars. There has to be a solution in here. Our ancestors thought of one. It was the labor union movement and holding true to it. What's the answer today? Look forward to your comments.